Do you ever wonder why being a caregiver is so hard on your emotional health? Caregivers ask how to deal with excessive fears or worries or feelings of guilt around not being able to do enough for loved ones, especially when there's nothing that can be done to improve a parent's health or living situations. I'll share examples of how to deal with these losses, these emotions, and what you can do today so that if tomorrow your loved ones are no longer here or you're no longer here, you will have felt comfortable that you've said everything that you need to say. I'm Pamela D Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. On there, a lot of hope, help, and support for caregivers and aging adults. Courses, podcasts, videos, articles, my library. Please remember to press the share button. Follow me on YouTube so that other people can find hope, help, and support. So let's start with your parent or spouse or loved one that you care for. They may have lost interest in living, interest in life. And if everything else has been checked out, so if your parent isn't experiencing depression or anxiety, or if you know that there's a diagnosis of dementia, some of this may be related to that, but let's say that you've checked everything out and there's really no reason or cause for this, then it's possible that your parent is kind of moving toward an end-of-life situation. And that can bring up a lot of emotions because then you're worried about, oh my gosh, what happens if they pass away? What am I going to do? Are we prepared? I don't want to lose my loved one. I want them to continue to be with me. There's a lot of emotions that we have to deal with. And this can happen, maybe the timing is a few weeks away. Maybe you know they're going to pass away. Maybe there's really nothing indicating they're ready to pass away. I mean, it could be weeks or months or a year. But all you know is that you're feeling uncomfortable, you're worried, and you're grieving this loss. Caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and dementia also experience these losses, more so because the progression is visible. Your loved one may not remember who you are. That is a horrible feeling. Or they may get you confused with your sister or brother, or maybe they think that you are their wife. I mean, there's so much confusion when memory loss gets to a point where they can't even remember who their loved ones are. So let's just talk about grief. Caregivers experience feelings of grief when they are losing control over things. So a parent's health gets worse and you feel like, there's nothing I can do to possibly change this. I've done everything. I feel so bad that mom or dad feel bad. So you can process grief in a lot of different ways. One way may be to think about, how is it going to feel when you can no longer pick up the phone to call and talk to a loved one, or go to their home, or have them come to your home, or celebrate holidays, or do all of that? That's going to bring up a feeling that probably is going to make you feel uncomfortable. You may even start crying. I can tell you that I remember the last times I spoke to my sister who was killed in a car accident, the last time I spoke to my mom and my dad before they passed away. And fortunately, those were all good conversations, or at least happy conversations. Now, if you're not yet in this place and you're trying to think, well, what does it feel like? How do I even imagine being in a place where I'm grieving the loss of something today that hasn't quite yet happened, or maybe it recently happened? So really common examples, let's say that maybe you lost a job during the pandemic, or your company downsized and you just lost a job. You experience a certain kind of grief associated with what that job gave you, whether it was income, or you were able to work with people that you enjoyed working with, or it was like your passion, or your self-esteem was associated with that. So there's a lot of grief with losing a job. Maybe you decided to take a promotion or a job 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 miles away, or even in like a foreign country. Then there's pluses and minuses, right? You're looking forward to this wonderful opportunity, but yet this door over here is closing. You're leaving behind friends and families and daily routines and social activities that you used to do. So there can be a lot of grief with even a positive aspect in life. And then there's just the grief of losing other relationships. So maybe a friendship broke up. Maybe you got a divorce. Maybe you're separated, or you realize that you're in a relationship and it's not good for you and you have to end it. So let's talk about words to say. And you can say these words anytime. You don't have to be in a loss situation or in a situation where somebody's dying. It's good to say these words regardless. And so they're words like, I love you. Or if you got in an argument with somebody, hey, I forgive you for that. I know it wasn't your fault. Or can you forgive me? I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't want this to affect our relationship. Thank people for things that they do for you. Say goodbye and say I love you. Now let's kind of go toward end of life. And if you have a loved one on hospice care, and if you don't know what hospice care is, it's care at end of life that's provided through insurance. And it could be care in the home or care in a nursing home or in a hospice facility. But the idea is that it relieves pain and suffering, because a lot of people are afraid of dying in pain or dying alone. Hospice care can be a great support for that. So I highly recommend it. There's other videos on this YouTube channel about hospice care and end-of-life care and making those decisions. And there's also a lot of information on my website. So at the end of life, sometimes you may have a parent or a loved one who's just hanging on. You know that they are ready to transition, but you're like, why are they hanging on so long? Well, some dying people can hold on to life because other people may not be ready to let them go, or maybe they're waiting for something or waiting to hear something. And I'll use a personal example from my own professional caregiving life. I had a lot of clients that I was medically and financially, legally responsible for, and I put them on hospice care. And there were many situations of times where I was waiting for something or they were waiting for something, and I went and had a final conversation, and they passed away. And so I'll give you an example. I was a power of attorney for an amazing woman named Carol. She was a nurse. And at the end of her life, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And there was a point in her last days where she had to go to an inpatient hospice just because the pain was so much and it needed to be managed without someone having to push a button or give injections or things like that. And so I would go see Carol at the hospice. And the last time I saw her, I said, Carol, you don't have anything to worry about. Your bills are paid. She was always worried about paying her bills. In fact, an interesting fact about her is she would always pay $1 more than the amount that was due. And that always sticks in my mind as something that I remember about Carol. But she also had cats. And she was very concerned about what was going to happen to her cats. So the last time I saw Carol, I said, Carol, everything's taken care of. All of your bills are paid. And your cats are adopted. They have new homes. They're going to be just fine. So there's nothing that you have to worry about. And if you were waiting for this news, now you have it. So I kissed her goodbye and I left and I said, hey, I'll see you again. Well, it took me about 30 minutes to drive home. And as I was putting that key in the lock of my door, my phone rang. And it was the nurse from hospice saying, oh, I'm so sorry to call you and tell you, but Carol just passed away. Well, Carol was waiting for me to show up to tell her that I had everything that she was worried about handled so that she could move on. A lot of times, this is what happens with our loved ones. And so in these situations, it's important to tell the person who's dying that you are going to be okay after they pass away, even if you're not sure if you are, even if you have doubts, that you will be okay so that they are not hanging on. Or it's important to tell them that, everything's handled, the things that they used to worry about are taken care of. You're not going to leave them. You're going to make sure that there's no pain, that they're not going to die alone. Pray with them, sing with them, make final phone calls to people that would want to hear from them or that they would want to talk to. It's kind of like you're giving them the assurance, as crazy as this sounds, that it's okay to pass on, and you're not putting your grief first, which can be really, really hard. If you have a lot of things that you haven't talked about, right? things that you haven't settled. You feel guilty about something. You need to ask for forgiveness. So while grieving losses definitely does not feel good, I've done it myself, because there are so many emotions inside, so many hard things that we may not have resolved, or that even the person dying may not have resolved. Going through this process, saying I love you, saying I forgive you, asking for forgiveness, making sure that they talk to people that they haven't spoken to in a long time that they may be interested in speaking to. It's important to do that so that everyone has a sense that we are at peace with this. Making plans for the future and unexpected health issues is so important for all of us. It can relieve a lot of the emotional stress that we're going through. It can help us not have to react in a crisis or respond in a crisis or feel like, oh my gosh, I missed the opportunity to tell this person that I love them before they drove off in their car and got into a car accident and died, which is what happened to my sister. So today, tell everybody in your life that you love them. Call a friend that you haven't spoken to in a long time. Send an email. Tell people how important they are to you. Because none of us, whether we are sick or not sick, we are not guaranteed tomorrow. We may not wake up tomorrow. So tell people how you feel about them today. I'm Pamela D Wilson. My website is PamelaDWilson.com. On there, a lot of hope, help, and support for caregivers and aging adults. Again, press the share button. Follow me on YouTube so that other people can find hope, help, and support. Have a fabulous day today. I will see you all again soon in another video. And please continue to send questions for these videos and for the podcast that I do. These are created for you. Have a great day today.